Now, Tyrion continues his march through the mountains of the moon in order to reach the coast of the Lannisters, and he has sent Chella, daughter of Cheik, to scout ahead and seize the army at the crossroads. And Chella are notably of the Black Ears, who are a clan who most likely have black ears based on that description, and so most likely are suffering from frostbite. Now, they notably also have their own host that they have gathered here, and amongst the different tribes of the mountain men here, we have the stone crows, which I previously pointed out seems to relate to the idea of the stone statues and the crows of the children of the forest being important in their culture. The Moon Brothers, which again ties the moons back into the culture of the Vale, and as I pointed out before, the Vale very much seems like it was a union between the fire and ice cultures. And we also find the Black Ears, who appear to have ears that have been eaten away by frostbite and the cold, and also the Burned Men, who very much put me in mind of people who worship fire. Now, it is revealed to us that the tribes here have an unusual customs from Tyrion's perspective, as notably we see that they refer to themselves as the son or daughter of someone, implying that they are showing the transition between a culture that would have been predominantly ruled by elected rulers to one that starts to create hereditary recognition, as it is noted that they are said to discuss things as a council and everyone was to get their voice heard. So they argue about everything endlessly, which Tyrion, obviously not being used to this sort of democratic system, does not understand the importance of this. And it does seem interesting in this world that we do see that most of the cultures which are conceived to be more primitive actually have this more advanced form of rule, much like we see with the Ironborn. We also find that the Burned Men are most feared of all the clans, as they apparently mortify their flesh with fire to prove their courage, and some of the other tribes would claim roasted babies at their feast, making them an interesting fire cult as to what exactly is the purpose behind these rituals. We find that part of their ritual culture is that when they come of age, they burn off a part of their body as a coming of age ritual. However, Timett, who is one of their warriors, has burned out his eye as a show of power, which has gained him some magnificent standing of recognition amongst their people and made him into what is known as a Red Hand, which seems to be a sort of war chief. Now, again, the Red Hand is an important symbol here, as given that this entire culture of the Vale seems to circle around fire and the weirwoods, it's important to note that a red hand can also symbolise weirwoods, as the leaves are considered to be bloody hands. So we see that in the time since the last Tyrion chapter, Tyrion has most likely spent a fair bit of time in the mountains gathering up the different tribes before heading down, as he now just starts to exit the high road. Tyrion approaches the crossroads and meets Sir Flemont Brax, who escorts him to Tywin, who has taken his lodging at the inn at the crossroads, which Tyrion saw as hilarious, as this is where his ordeal first began. Upon reaching the inn, Tyrion finds the body of the woman who ran the inn hanging from the tree outside, and he laments that all he asked was a room before all of this spiraled out of control. Tyrion enters the inn to find his father Tywin, as well as Tywin's only remaining brother Kevin, sitting planning their future attacks. Tyrion remarks that it was good of Tywin to go to war for him, and Tywin remarks that he did so because he had to, blaming Tyrion for all of this, and noting that he gave him no choice, the honour of the house was at stake. It appears that it was accurate in the previous chapter when it was noted that Edmure would send out small groups to stop the raiding, and then Tywin would use this to his advantage, as he just simply mopped up all the small groups before they could reunite and therefore crippled Edmure's forces. Tywin then reveals that after Jaime smashed Lord Mance and Piper at the Golden Tooth, he then met the forces of the Tullys at Riverrun and put the Tullys to rout, with Edmure being taken captive, as well as many of the knights and bannermen that were with him. Lord Blackwood has led a few survivors back to Riverrun, where Jaime currently has them under siege, while the rest have fled back to their own strongholds. Tywin has then been marching on each of them in turn. Raventree Hall fell at once as the Lord was in Riverrun, and Lady Went has yielded Harrenhal as she has no one to defend it. Meanwhile, the mountain has burnt out the Pipers and the Brackens. However, it is noted that the Mallisters still hold Seaguard, and Walder Frey is still marshalling his troops at the Twins, showing that once again he is still sitting undecided until there is a clear victor. And Tywin even notes that this is not lost on him, as he notes that Frey only takes to the field when he scents victory in the air in order to join the victor. Jason Mallister is unable to fight alone. Once Jaime has taken Riverrun, they will both be quick enough to bend the knee. Unless the Starks and the Arryns come forth to oppose them, the war is pretty much going in Tywin's favour. Tyrion does note that the Arryns are most likely not going to be a threat based on his experience. However, the Starks may be a bigger obstacle to overcome. It is also noted by Tywin that Mark Piper and Carl Vance are still loose behind their force, raiding out the lands as they go, particularly in the area of the Red Fork, and so Tywin wants them eliminated, as well as Thoros and Beric, who are still around causing issues for them, having survived the attack by the mountain. Tyrion's host of mountain clansmen break in at this point, having had disputes with the Lannister guards, and it seems as if a brawl is about to break out before Tywin very coldly deals with the situation. It's at this point that we discover that the Starks have begun moving south as a message has arrived saying that they are heading down the causeway at Moat Cailin. And Tyrion can read Tywin enough to know that this actually excites him, seeing Robb heading into what he believes is his clutches, and informs them that Sir Adam Marbrand is to fall back and draw them south while harassing their forces to further pull them in. Tywin then resolves to use the mountain clansmen as the vanguard in his army in order to both dispose of them and put them to use against the northern forces, tricking them into facing them by claiming that the North are so formidable that its own men would be afraid to face them, using their bravado against them. However, it is noted here that they still want Tyrion by their side, much to Tywin's apparent delight.